My name is Wilma Alvin. I am 78 years old. People see me today as a quiet grandmother who lives in a small town in Ohio, in a white wooden house with a porch that creaks when the wind blows. They think my life has been simple. They think my wrinkles came only from age. But they do not know the story that shaped my heart. They do not know the promise that followed me for 60 years. And they do not know the moment that changed everything forever. Before I begin, let me ask you something. If someone you trusted with your dreams betrayed you, what would you do? Would you cry and move on? Or would you rise in a way they never expected? If you love emotional stories like this, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you never miss the next chapter. Like this video if you believe that promises should never be broken. Turn on the notification button so you can follow Wilma's journey from heartbreak to quiet victory. And tell me in the comments which part of the United States you are watching from. I want to know who is listening to this story with me. Now let me take you back to where it all began. I was 18 years old when Mr. Nathaniel Crowley changed my life. He was not like the other teachers at Maplewood High School. While others shouted and punished students, he spoke softly. He wore old brown suits and smelled of chalk and pine soap. When he smiled, it felt like sunlight breaking through winter clouds. I was a shy girl from a poor farming family. My father woke up before dawn to milk cows. My mother stitched clothes for neighbors to pay bills. I dreamed of leaving our small town, but I had no idea how. One afternoon after class, I stayed behind to clean the blackboard. Mr. Crowley watched me quietly. "Wilma," he said gently, "you are different." "Different how, sir?" I asked. "You see the world with brave eyes. One day you will do great things." No one had ever spoken to me like that before. From that day on, he began to notice me more. He gave me extra books. He asked about my dreams. He told me stories about life beyond our town. Then one evening after the school festival, everything changed. The football field was empty. The sky was painted orange and purple. I was walking home when I heard his voice behind me. "Wilma, wait." I turned around. He stood there, hands in his pockets, looking nervous. "There is something I have never told you," he said. My heart began to race. "You are too young now," he continued slowly. "But one day when you grow up, when the world is ready for you, I want to marry you." I felt my breath leave my body. "You mean me?" I whispered. "Yes, Wilma. I have never felt this way before. I promise you when the time is right, I will come back for you." At 18, I believed him. I believed every word. That night I could not sleep. I imagined a future where I was no longer poor, where I was loved, where I was chosen. Years passed. I went to college with scholarships. I worked hard. Waited. Every holiday, I returned to Maplewood. Every time I hoped to see him. But he was always busy. Always distant. Until one day when I was 25, I heard a rumor that made my world stop. Mr. Nathaniel Crowley was getting married. Not to me. To a young woman from a wealthy family. I stood in front of the town newspaper office, holding the paper in shaking hands. My name was nowhere in his future. That was the day I realized something painful. Promises are easy to make when you do not plan to keep them. I thought my heart would break forever. But I did not cry in front of anyone. Instead, something inside me became very quiet, very cold. And in that silence, I made a decision that would change his life in a way he never imagined. But I did not act immediately. I waited. I learned. Grew. Because some victories are not loud. Some victories take years. And when the time came, he would finally understand what it means to lose someone you thought would always be there. If you think Wilma should confront him or walk away forever, tell me in the comments. Like this video if you want to see what she does next. Subscribe to the channel so you do not miss chapter 2, where Wilma takes her first step toward a future that no one saw coming. Because the next time I saw Nathaniel Crowley, he was standing at my front door. And he was crying. When I opened the door, I did not recognize him at first. The man standing on my porch looked older than I remembered. His hair, once dark and full, had turned gray at the temples. His shoulders, once straight and proud, were slightly bent. But his eyes were the same. Nathaniel Crowley. For a moment I thought I was dreaming. For years, I had imagined what I would say if I ever saw him again. But when the moment finally came, my mind went completely blank. "Wilma," he said softly. He spoke my name the same way he had when I was 18. Gentle. Familiar. Dangerous. I stood there without moving. "I heard you were back in town," he continued. "I did not know where else to find you." Back in town. Yes, I had returned to Maplewood 2 years earlier. My parents were gone. The farm had been sold. I had come back not because I wanted to, but because life had pushed me here. I should have closed the door. I should have told him to leave. But I did not. "Come in," I said quietly. He stepped into my house like someone walking into a memory. He looked around at the simple furniture, the old photographs on the wall, the worn carpet. "You have done well for yourself," he said. I smiled politely, but my heart felt heavy. "Why are you here, Nathaniel?" I asked. He sat down slowly on my couch, rubbing his hands together. For a moment, he looked like a boy who had lost his way. "I heard you never married," he said. I felt a sharp sting in my chest. "And what if I had?" I replied. He looked down. "I do not know how to say this, Wilma." "Say it," I said. He took a deep breath. "I made a mistake." The words hung in the air between us. I waited. He began to speak, slowly, carefully, like someone afraid of breaking glass. "I thought marrying Eleanor was the right thing. Her family had money. They had connections. Everyone told me it was a smart decision. I was afraid of being poor forever. I was afraid of choosing love over security." I listened without interrupting him. "I thought I was doing the adult thing," he continued. "But I was wrong." I looked at him for a long time. "And now?" I asked. "Now I am alone," he said quietly. The word alone echoed in my mind. He told me everything. How his marriage had started with smiles and ended with silence. How Eleanor cared more about appearances than feelings. How their house was big but empty. How their conversations were polite but cold. "We lived like strangers," he said. I felt no joy hearing his pain, only a strange calm. Then he looked at me in a way that made my stomach tighten. "Wilma," he said, "I never forgot you." I almost laughed. "Never forgot me? Where were you when I waited?" I asked softly. "Where were you when I came home every holiday hoping to see you? Where were you when I heard about your wedding from strangers?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. "I know I hurt you," he whispered. "I know I broke my promise." "Yes, you did," I said. Silence filled the room again. Then he said something that made my hands tremble. "I came here because I want another chance." Another chance. The words sounded unreal. He stood up and walked closer to me. "Wilma, I am not the young man you knew anymore. I have lost everything that mattered to me. And now I see clearly. You were the only person who ever loved me without conditions." I looked at his face. There was regret in his eyes. There was fear. But there was also something else. Need. And suddenly I understood something important. He did not come back because he loved me. He came back because he was lonely. I felt something inside me shift. For years, I had imagined him as the hero of my youth. But now, standing in my living room, he looked small. "Wilma," he said again, "please talk to me." I walked to the window and looked outside. The sun was setting behind the trees. The sky was turning the same colors it had been the day he made his promise to me. "Do you know what your promise did to me?" I asked quietly. He shook his head slowly. "It shaped my entire life," I said. I turned to face him. And in that moment I realized something else. I was no longer the shy girl he had once known. I was no longer the girl who waited. I was a woman who had survived. And suddenly, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Not out of hatred. Not out of revenge. But out of something deeper. Something that would teach him a lesson he would never forget. "Nathaniel," I said softly, "if you really want another chance, you will have to prove something to me." His eyes widened. "Anything," he said quickly. I smiled for the first time that evening. "Good," I replied. Because what I was about to ask him to do would change his life forever. "If you want to know what I demanded from him, stay with me. Like this story if you feel Wilma deserves justice." Subscribe so you do not miss Chapter 3, where Nathaniel agrees to a promise he never imagined he would have to keep. Because the next morning he showed up again. And he had no idea that he had just stepped into the most painful lesson of his life. The next morning I woke up before the sun. For a long time I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the wall, listening to the quiet sound of my old house. I wondered if Nathaniel would really come back. Men like him often speak big words at night and disappear in the morning. But at exactly 8 o'clock I heard a knock on my door. Low. Careful. I did not rush to open it. I washed my face. Made tea. I let him wait. When I finally opened the door, he was standing there with a small bouquet of wildflowers in his hand. They were not expensive. They were simple. "Good morning, Wilma," he said softly. "Good morning, Nathaniel," I replied. He looked nervous, like a student waiting for his exam results. "You said I had to prove something," he reminded me. "Yes, I did," I said calmly. I invited him inside again. We sat across from each other at my kitchen table. Between us was a distance that no years could erase. "Before I tell you what I want," I said, "you must understand something." He nodded quickly. "I am not the girl you left behind," I continued. "I am not waiting for anyone anymore. If you want to be part of my life, it will not be on your terms." "Understand," he said. I studied his face. For the first time, I saw not the teacher who once seemed powerful, but an aging man afraid of being forgotten. Then I said the words that surprised even myself. "If you want another chance, you must tell the truth." "The truth about what?" he asked. "About everything," I replied. "About why you really left me. Not the polite story. Not the safe excuses. The real reason." He looked away. Waited. Minutes passed. Finally he spoke. "When I promised to marry you," he said slowly, "I meant it in that moment. But later I became afraid." "Afraid of what?" I asked. "Afraid of being judged," he said. "People in town already whispered that I was too close to you. They said you were just a poor farmer's daughter. They said marrying you would ruin my future." His words cut deeper than I expected. "So you listened to them," I said quietly. "Yes," he admitted. "I wanted respect. I wanted status. I wanted a life that looked successful. And I did not fit into that picture," I said. He did not answer. He did not need to. I felt a strange mix of pain and clarity. For years I had blamed myself. I had wondered if I was not good enough. Now I knew the truth. "You chose comfort over courage," I said. He nodded slowly. "I was a coward," he whispered. Silence filled the kitchen again. Then I leaned forward and said something he did not expect. "But..." He looked up confused. "Good," he repeated. "Yes," I said. "'Cause now I know exactly who you are." He swallowed hard. "So what do you want me to do?" he asked. I looked into his eyes. "You will help me tell my story," I said. He frowned slightly. "Your story?" "Yes," I said. For years you told your version of events. You lived your life. You built your image. Now you will stand beside me while I tell the truth about what happened. He shifted in his chair. To who? He asked. To everyone, I replied. His face turned pale. You mean the town? Your old colleagues. Your friends. Your family. You will not defend yourself. You will not correct me. You will not hide behind excuses. He stared at me in shock. Wilma, he said, that could destroy my reputation. I smiled gently. You once destroyed my heart, I said. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. For a long time he said nothing. I watched him struggle. I saw the battle inside him. Finally he spoke. If I do this, he said, will you forgive me? I thought about his question carefully. Forgiveness is not something you can earn with one act, I said. But this is the first step. He took a deep breath. All right, he said. I will do it. In that moment I felt a quiet sense of power. Not because I wanted to humiliate him, but because for the first time in my life I was no longer silent. Over the next weeks, we began to prepare. I wrote everything down. Every memory. Every promise. Every waiting year. Nathaniel read my words. Sometimes he cried. Sometimes he tried to look away. But he never stopped reading. One evening, as we sat in my living room, he looked at me and said something that shook me deeply. Wilma, he said, I did not realize how much I damaged your life. I looked at him calmly. You did not destroy my life, I said. You changed it. He looked relieved. But you will soon understand something else, I added. He frowned slightly. What do you mean? I leaned back in my chair and looked at him quietly. I mean that telling the truth is only the beginning. He stared at me uneasy, because the next part of my plan was not about words. It was about consequences. And when the day came for Nathaniel to stand beside me in front of the town that once praised him, he would finally understand what it feels like to be exposed, vulnerable, and powerless. And he would realize that my story was no longer just mine. It was about to become his greatest fear. If you feel Wilma is finally taking control of her destiny, stay with this story. Because in the next chapter, the whole town will gather in one place. And Nathaniel Crowley will face the truth in front of everyone he ever tried to impress. And what happens there will change both our lives forever. The hall smelled like old wood and dust. Maplewood Community Center had not changed much in 60 years. The same faded curtains. The same long wooden benches. The same stage where children once performed school plays and graduation speeches. But that evening the room felt different. People were arriving slowly. Old neighbors, former teachers, retired farmers, young families who had only heard stories about the past. They came because they thought it was just another local event. A small town gathering. Talk about memories and history. They did not know the real reason they were there. Nathaniel stood beside me near the stage. He looked neat and respectful, wearing a gray jacket and polished shoes. To everyone else, he still looked like the honorable former teacher they admired. But I could feel his fear. His hands trembled slightly. His eyes avoided mine. Are you ready? I asked quietly. He nodded, but his voice sounded weak when he answered. Think so. I looked at him calmly. You promised, I reminded him. Yes, Wilma, he said. The hall slowly filled up. I recognized many faces. Mrs. Holbrook, who used to bring pies to our farm. Mr. Daniels, who once told my father that I was dreaming too big. Old classmates who had laughed at my worn shoes. And then there were people who had never known me at all. To them, I was just an old woman with a quiet life. They had no idea what they were about to hear. When the clock struck 7, the town mayor walked onto the stage. Thank you all for coming, he said warmly. Tonight we are here to listen to a story from one of our own. Wilma Alvin has lived in Maplewood for most of her life, and she wants to share something important with us. My heart beat slowly but firmly. I walked onto the stage. The microphone felt cold in my hand. For a moment I looked at the crowd. So many eyes. So many memories. Then I saw Nathaniel sitting in the front row. He looked up at me. I began to speak. "My name is Wilma Alvin," I said. "Most of you know me as the quiet girl from the old farm on Cedar Road." Some people smiled politely. "But tonight I want to tell you a story I have never told before," I continued. The hall became silent. "When I was 18 years old, I met a man who changed my life." Pause. Nathaniel Crowley. A soft murmur moved through the crowd. Some people turned their heads toward him. Nathaniel lowered his eyes. "He was my teacher," I said calmly. "He encouraged my dreams. He told me I was special." People listened closely now. "One evening," I continued, "he made me a promise. He told me that one day, when I grew older, he would marry me." The hall went completely still. I did not raise my voice. I did not cry. I simply told the truth. "I believed him," I said. "For years I waited. I worked hard. I built my life around the hope that someone had chosen me." Some people looked uncomfortable. Others looked shocked. But when the time came, I continued, "He broke that promise. He married someone else. He chose comfort over courage. He chose status over love." I looked directly at Nathaniel. "And I lived with the consequences of that broken promise for the rest of my life." Nathaniel slowly stood up from his seat. The mayor looked confused. People whispered to each other. Then Nathaniel walked toward the stage. Every step looked heavy. When he reached me, he stopped beside me. I stepped slightly aside and gave him the microphone. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he spoke. "Everything Wilma said is true," he said quietly. A wave of shock moved through the hall. "I was afraid," he continued. "I cared too much about what people thought. I cared too much about my image." He swallowed hard. "I broke a promise that should never have been made if I could not keep it." Some people gasped softly. I saw tears in a few eyes. Nathaniel looked at me. "Wilma deserved honesty," he said. "And I never gave it to her." He handed the microphone back to me and stepped aside. For a moment I felt something I had never felt before. Not revenge. Not anger. Freedom. I looked at the crowd again. "I am not here to destroy anyone," I said. "I am here to reclaim my story." My voice was calm, but it carried across the hall. For years, people saw Nathaniel Crowley as a good man. Maybe he is not a monster. But even good people can cause deep wounds when they choose fear over truth. The hall was silent again. "Tonight," I said softly, "I am no longer silent." When I stepped down from the stage, my legs felt weak. Nathaniel stood there, looking smaller than I had ever seen him. Outside the hall, people gathered in small groups. Some came to hug me. Some avoided Nathaniel. Some looked confused, unsure of what to believe. The town would never see him the same way again. And for the first time, he understood what it felt like to stand alone in front of the world. But what Nathaniel did not know was this. That night was only the beginning. Because telling the truth was not my final step. It was just the door to something much bigger. And soon, he would discover that the consequences of a broken promise can last longer than a lifetime. In the next chapter, Nathaniel will try to repair what he destroyed. But he will learn that some hearts do not reopen the way they once did. And when he makes a decision he believes will save him, it will lead to the most unexpected turning point of our story. After that night at the community hall, Maplewood was no longer the same town. People greeted me differently. Some looked at me with respect. Some looked at me with pity. Some looked at me with curiosity, as if I had suddenly become someone important. And Nathaniel Crowley became a man everyone watched. He stopped attending church for a while. He stopped joining the retired teachers club. He stopped smiling in public. I heard stories about him from neighbors. They say he barely leaves his house now. They say he looks 10 years older. They say he regrets everything. But I did not ask about him. I had spent too many years waiting for him. Now it was his turn to feel what waiting felt like. One afternoon, 3 weeks after the event, I was watering my small garden when I saw a familiar figure walking slowly toward my house. It was Nathaniel. He looked thinner. His steps were slow, as if every movement cost him effort. I did not rush to meet him. I continued watering the flowers. When he reached the gate, he stopped. "Wilma," he called softly. I turned around. "Yes," I replied calmly. "May I talk to you?" he asked. I looked at him for a long moment. "About what?" he asked. "About us," he said quietly. "There is no us, Nathaniel," I said. He lowered his head. "May I come in?" he asked again. After a few seconds, I nodded. We sat on the porch this time, not inside the house. The wind was gentle. The sky was pale blue. For a while, neither of us spoke. Finally, Nathaniel broke the silence. "I have been thinking about everything," he said. I listened without interrupting him. "I realized something," he continued. "I lived my whole life trying to look successful in front of others. But when I lost my reputation, I understood how empty my life really is." I looked at him quietly. "I never built a real family," he said. "I never fought for love. I never had the courage to choose what mattered." His voice trembled slightly. "And now I am old, Wilma," he said. "And I am afraid of dying alone." His words were honest. Painfully honest. For a moment, I felt a shadow of the girl I once was. The girl who had dreamed of him. But that girl was gone. "Nathaniel," I said softly, "you came back to me not because you loved me, but because you were afraid." He did not deny it. "Yes," he whispered. I looked at the road in front of my house. "Do you know what fear did to me?" "Yes." He looked up at me. "Fear taught me how to survive alone," I said. "Fear taught me how to build a life without depending on anyone." I turned to him again. "You were my dream once, Nathaniel," I said. "But dreams change when people wake up." He closed his eyes for a moment. "I do not deserve you," he said. I did not answer immediately. Then he said something unexpected. "I want to do something for you." I raised my eyebrows slightly. "What do you mean?" he asked. "I want to help you in a way that really matters," he said. "Not just words. Not just apologies." I watched him carefully. "I have some savings," he continued. "Small house. Pension. I want to use what I have left to support your dreams." I almost laughed softly. "My dreams?" he asked. "Yes," he said quickly. "You always wanted to help young girls from poor families, remember? You once told me you wished someone had helped you when you were young." Froze. I had said those words to him 60 years ago. He remembered. "I want to help you create something," he said. "Scholarship. Small program. Something that gives girls the chance you never had." His voice was shaking now. "Let me do this, Wilma," he said. "If I cannot change the past, at least let me change the future for someone else." I looked at him silently. For a long time I did not speak. Part of me wanted to say no. Part of me wanted to close the door forever. But another part of me saw something different. Not a broken man. But an opportunity. Not for revenge. But for meaning. "If I accept your offer," I said slowly, "you will not do this to look good in front of people." He nodded immediately. "You will not tell anyone that it was your idea," I continued. He nodded again. "You will not use my story to clean your image," I said. He swallowed hard. "Promise," he said. I looked into his eyes. Then I said something that made his breath stop. "If you really want to help me," I said, "you must give me full control." "Full control," he repeated. "Yes," I said calmly. "You will not decide how the money is used. You will not choose who receives help. You will not interfere." He hesitated for a moment. Then he nodded. "I agree," he said. In that moment I realized something powerful. For the first time, Nathaniel Crowley was no longer in control of the story. It was. And what he did not understand was this. That the program we were about to create would become famous far beyond Maplewood. And when the world began to praise Wilma Alvin, not Nathaniel Crowley, he would finally understand what it means to watch someone else rise from the ashes of your mistakes. But that was not the biggest twist yet. Because months later, when I opened an old box of letters in my attic, I discovered a secret that would change everything I thought I knew about Nathaniel Crowley. And that secret would force me to make the most difficult decision of my life. In the next chapter, the past will reveal a truth that no one was prepared for. And when I read one particular letter, my hands began to shake in a way they never had before. The attic had always been my quiet place. It was small and dusty, filled with old boxes, faded photographs, and memories I had not touched in years. That afternoon, rain tapped softly on the roof while I climbed the narrow wooden stairs with a lamp in my hand. I was not looking for anything special. I only wanted to old things, the way old people often do when they feel time moving faster than before. I opened one box after another. Old school notebooks, my mother's sewing tools, my father's worn hat. Then I found a box I had almost forgotten. It was labeled with my handwriting from many years ago. Letters. My heart beat a little faster. Inside were dozens of envelopes. Some were from friends. Some were from classmates. Some were from people who had passed through my life and disappeared. And at the bottom of the box, I saw something that made my breath stop. An envelope with my name on it. Wilma Alvin. But the handwriting was not mine. It was Nathaniel's. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I knew I had never received this letter before. So how did it end up in my attic? The envelope looked old, yellowed by time. The edges were worn. I sat down slowly on the wooden floor. For a long moment, I stared at it without opening it. Part of me was afraid. Part of me was curious. Finally, I opened it. Inside was a folded sheet of paper. I unfolded it carefully. The date at the top made my heart skip a beat. It was written 60 years ago. Around the time he married Eleanor. I began to read. Dear Wilma, if you are reading this letter, it means I finally found the courage to tell you the truth. My fingers tightened around the paper. I swallowed hard and continued. I have carried this weight in my heart for years. I do not know if you will ever forgive me, but you deserve to know what really happened. My eyes moved slowly across the words. When I promised to marry you, I meant it. But there is something I never told you. I felt a cold wave move through my body. My family threatened me. Froze. Threatened you. I whispered to myself. I continued reading. When they discovered my feelings for you, they were furious. They said if I married you, they would destroy my career. They said they would accuse me of things that would ruin my life forever. My breath became shallow. They told me I had to choose. Either I abandoned you or I would lose everything. I felt tears rising in my eyes. I was young and afraid. I did not know how to fight them. So I chose the wrong path. I lowered the letter slightly, my hands shaking. For years, I believed Nathaniel had abandoned me because he was ashamed of me. 'Cause he wanted money. 'Cause he wanted status. But this letter was telling a different story. I continued reading. I wanted to send you this letter, but my family stopped me. They said if I contacted you, they would make my life a nightmare. I felt my chest tighten. I kept this letter hidden for years. I planned to give it to you one day. But I never found the courage. Tears rolled down my cheeks now. I am not asking you to understand me. I am not asking you to forgive me. I only want you to know that I never stopped caring about you. I folded the letter slowly. The attic felt suddenly too quiet. For a long time I did not move. Everything I believed about my past began to crack. If this letter was true, then my story was not as simple as I thought. Nathaniel was not just a coward. He was also a young man trapped by fear and pressure. But another question burned inside me. Why did I never receive this letter? How did it end up in my attic? That evening I could not sleep. I kept thinking about the words on that paper. The next morning, I made a decision I had avoided for decades. I went to see Nathaniel. When he opened his door, he looked surprised. Wilma, he said softly. We need to talk, I replied. He stepped aside to let me in. We sat in his living room just like before. But this time I held the letter in my hand. I placed it on the table between us. Do you recognize this? I asked quietly. He looked at the envelope. His face turned pale. Where did you find it? He whispered. In my attic, I said. He closed his eyes slowly. I thought I destroyed it, he said. Destroyed it? I repeated. He nodded slowly. I was afraid you would hate me even more if you knew the truth, he said. I looked at him in silence. So everything in this letter is true? Yes. He hesitated for a moment. Then he nodded. Yes, Wilma, he said. My family forced me to leave you. I felt anger, sadness, and confusion mixing inside my heart. Why did you never tell me when you came back into my life? Yes. He looked down. 'Cause I was ashamed, he said. Ashamed that I did not fight for you. Ashamed that I chose safety over love. I leaned back in my chair. For years I had built my strength on one belief. That Nathaniel chose to abandon me because I was not enough. Now that belief was falling apart. And with it, my sense of victory began to change shape. Nathaniel looked at me carefully. Wilma, he said, if I had been braver, our lives would have been different. I looked at him for a long time. Maybe I said slowly. But then I added something that surprised even me. Or maybe we both needed to become who we are today. He stared at me, unsure of what I meant. I stood up slowly. There is something you still do not know, I said. He frowned slightly. What is it? He asked. I walked toward the door, then turned back to face him. You think my story ends with forgiveness, I said quietly. But it does not. Because the program we created together has reached someone you never expected. Someone connected to your past. Someone who knows a secret about your family that even you do not know. Nathaniel's eyes widened. What secret? He asked. I looked at him calmly. And in that moment, I realized that the next truth I was about to reveal would hurt him more than any accusation ever could. Because it was not about the past anymore. It was about a future that could never be undone. And when he finally heard the name of the person who applied for my scholarship, his hands began to shake the same way mine had shaken in the attic. In the next chapter, a stranger will walk into my office. And when I see her face, I will realize that fate has a cruel way of connecting broken stories. Because she is not just a student. She is the living proof that some secrets never stay buried forever. The morning she walked into my office, the sun was bright, but my heart felt strangely heavy. Our scholarship program had grown faster than I ever imagined. What started as a small idea in Maplewood had become something real. Young girls from poor families wrote letters to us. Some from farms. Some from broken homes. Some from towns so small they did not even appear on maps. I read every application myself. Not because I had to, but because I remembered what it felt like to hope for someone to notice you. That day, my assistant knocked gently on my door. Wilma, she said, there is a young woman here who insists on speaking with you personally. What is her name? Asked. Lena Crowley, she replied. My hand froze in the air. Crowley. For a moment, I thought I had misheard. Send her in, I said quietly. When the door opened, the girl stepped inside slowly. She looked around nervously, holding her bag tightly against her chest. She was about 20 years old. Slim. With dark brown hair tied back in a simple ponytail. But it was not her hair that caught my attention. It was her eyes. They were the same eyes I had seen 60 years ago in a classroom full of chalk dust. Nathaniel's eyes. Hello, ma'am, she said softly. Her voice was polite, respectful, but slightly shaky. Hello, I replied. She stood there, unsure of where to sit. Please sit down, I said gently. She sat on the chair across from me. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally she said, my name is Lena Crowley. I applied for the Wilma Alvin scholarship. Yes, I know, I said calmly. She looked at me carefully. I did not expect to meet you in person, she said. But when I heard your story at the town event months ago, I felt like I needed to see you. My heart tightened slightly. Why? Yes. She hesitated. 'Cause I think we are connected in a way you do not know yet, she said. I felt a chill move through my body. What do you mean? Yes. She took a deep breath. My father told me something before he died, she said. Your father? I repeated. Yes, she said. His name was Daniel Crowley. Daniel Crowley. Not Nathaniel. I felt a strange confusion. Daniel was Nathaniel's younger brother. I remembered him vaguely. A quiet boy who used to follow Nathaniel around town. He died years ago in a car accident. What did he tell you? I asked quietly. Lena looked down at her hands. He told me that our family once destroyed a woman's future, she said. He said her name was Wilma Alvin. My breath stopped. He told me that if I ever met you, I should apologize, she continued. The room felt suddenly too small. Apologize for what? Yes. She looked up at me. For what my uncle Nathaniel did to you, she said softly. The words hit me like a wave. So Nathaniel had told his brother the truth. I felt my hands tremble slightly. Lena continued speaking. My father said our family forced Nathaniel to abandon you, she said. He said they were afraid of scandal. Afraid of losing status. I closed my eyes for a moment. So the letter was true. But then Lena said something that changed everything. There is more, she added quietly. I opened my eyes. More. I repeated. She nodded slowly. My father told me something else before he died, she said. Her voice became softer. He said that Nathaniel once tried to fight for you. I leaned forward slightly. What do you mean? Yes. Lena swallowed hard. He said Nathaniel planned to leave town with you, she said. He wanted to run away and start a new life with you. My heart began to beat faster. But our family stopped him, she continued. Oh. Yes. Lena hesitated. They threatened him, she said. But they also did something worse. My throat felt dry. What did they do? Yes. She looked at me with eyes full of uncertainty and fear. They lied to him, she said. Lied to him about what? Yes. Lena took a deep breath. They told him you had already fallen in love with another man, she said. The words struck me like lightning. For a moment I could not speak. Another man. I whispered. Yes, Lena said. They showed him fake letters, she continued. They made him believe you had moved on. I felt tears rise in my eyes. All those years. All that waiting. All that pain. It had been built on a lie. For a long moment I sat there in silence. Lena watched me carefully. I did not know if I should tell you this, she said softly. But my father said the truth matters, even when it hurts. I looked at her face again. She was not my enemy. She was just a young girl carrying the weight of someone else's sins. Why did you apply for this scholarship? I asked quietly. She hesitated, then answered honestly. Because I want to leave this town, she said. I want to study social work. I want to help people who feel trapped by their families. Her words felt like an echo of my younger self. I looked at her for a long time. Then I said something that surprised her. You will get the scholarship, Lena. Her eyes widened. Really? She asked. Yes, I said calmly. But not because of your name. Not because of your family. You will get it because you are brave enough to tell the truth. Tears filled her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. After she left my office, I sat alone for a long time. The world I thought I understood had changed again. Nathaniel was not only a coward. He was also a victim of his own family's lies. But that did not erase the pain he caused me. It only made the story more complicated. That evening I called Nathaniel. We need to talk, I said quietly. His voice sounded nervous. About what? He asked. About Lena, I replied. There was a long silence on the other side of the phone. You met her? He finally asked. Yes, I said. And she told me everything. His breathing became heavy. Wilma, he said softly, I never wanted you to find out like this. Find out what? Yes. He hesitated. That I almost chose you over everything, he said. I closed my eyes slowly. Almost, I repeated. Yes, he said. And in that moment I realized something painful. Almost is not the same as enough. But the real twist was still ahead. Because a few days later, I received a phone call that would force me to make the hardest decision of my life. A decision that would determine whether Nathaniel Crowley would finally find peace. Or lose everything he had left. In the next chapter, Nathaniel will face a truth he never imagined he would hear from my lips. And when I speak those words, he will understand that love delayed for 60 years can transform into something far more powerful than revenge. The phone call came late at night. I was sitting alone in my living room, listening to the quiet ticking of the old clock on my wall. My mind was still full of Lena's words. Fake letters. Family lies. Almost love. When the phone rang, I felt it before I heard it. Wilma. Nathaniel's voice came through the line, soft and tired. Yes, I replied. I heard from Lena, he said. She told me she met you. I remained silent. Did she tell you everything? He asked carefully. Yes, I said. There was a long pause. I never thought the truth would come out like this, he whispered. I leaned back in my chair. Nathaniel, I said quietly. Do you know what hurts the most? He did not answer. It is not that you broke your promise, I continued. It is that for 60 years I believed I was the reason you walked away. His breathing became heavier. I believed I was not worthy enough, I said. Not beautiful enough. Not important enough. Wilma, he said softly, you were never the problem. I laughed quietly, but there was no joy in it. You say that now, I replied. Silence filled the line again. Then he said something I did not expect. I want to see you, Wilma. Not as the man who failed you. Not as the teacher from your past. But as someone who finally wants to be honest. I hesitated for a moment. Come tomorrow morning, I said. The next day, Nathaniel arrived early. He looked older than ever. His hair was almost completely gray. His eyes carried years of regret. We sat on the porch again. The same place where he had once asked for another chance. Wilma, he said slowly, I have lived my whole life thinking I was protecting myself. But now I see that I was only running from fear. I looked at him quietly. My family lied to me, he continued. They made me believe you had moved on. They told me you were ashamed of me. I listened without interrupting him. But even if they lied, he said, I should have come to you. I should have asked you myself. Yes, I said softly. He lowered his head. I was not brave enough, he whispered. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said something that made him look up suddenly. Nathaniel, I said, I have made a decision. He stared at me, his eyes full of fear and hope at the same time. What decision? He asked. I looked straight into his eyes. I'm going to tell the world the full story, I said. His face turned pale. The full story. He repeated. Yes, I said. Not just the part where you broke your promise. Not just the part where your family interfered. Pause. But everything. He swallowed hard. What will that do? He asked. It will change how people see you forever, I said calmly. He nodded slowly. I deserve that, he said. But then I added something he did not expect. And I am also going to tell them something else. He looked at me confused. What else? He asked. That you were not the only one who suffered, I said. That your family controlled you the same way they tried to control me. His eyes widened. Wilma, he said, if you say that, people will pity me. I shook my head slightly. No, I said. They will understand that fear destroys lives on both sides. He stared at me in silence. Why are you doing this? He asked quietly. I thought about the answer for a moment. Because I am tired of living in a story where there are only villains and victims, I said. Real life is more complicated than that. Nathaniel looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Then I said the words that made his hands tremble. But there is one condition. He leaned forward slightly. Anything, he said. I looked at him calmly. After I tell the full truth, you will walk away from my life forever, I said. His face froze. Walk away. He whispered. Yes, I said. No more visits. No more apologies. No more trying to fix the past. He stared at me as if he could not breathe. Wilma, he said, if I walk away now, it will be like losing you again. I nodded slowly. Exactly, I said. He looked at me with eyes full of pain. Why would you do that to me? He asked softly. I looked back at him with calm eyes. Because sometimes, I said, the greatest lesson is not punishment. It is acceptance of loss. Tears filled his eyes. For the first time, Nathaniel Crowley truly understood what it meant to lose someone not by accident, but by choice. He sat there silently for a long time. Finally he nodded slowly. If that is the price of truth, he said, I will pay it. In that moment I felt something inside me finally settle. Not anger. Not revenge. But what I did not know was this. Nathaniel was about to make one final decision on his own. A decision that would shock the entire town. And when I heard what he did after leaving my house that day, I realized that even the strongest hearts are not always prepared for the weight of the truth. In the next chapter, Maplewood will wake up to news no one expected. And I will be forced to confront the most painful question of all. Did I finally free myself? Or did I push a broken man too far? The morning Maplewood woke up, the air felt different. I did not know why at first. I was standing in my kitchen, stirring coffee, watching sunlight fall across the wooden floor. Everything looked normal. But something inside me felt uneasy. Then my phone rang. It was my neighbor, Mrs. Holbrook. Wilma, she said in a trembling voice, have you heard? Heard what? I asked. About Nathaniel, she replied. My hand froze around the cup. What about him? I asked quietly. There was a pause on the line. He has done something, she said. Something that has shocked everyone. My heart began to beat faster. I stopped myself. Is he alive? I asked. Yes, she said quickly. He is alive. I released a breath I did not realize I was holding. Then what did he do? I asked. He left, she said. Left. I repeated. Yes, she said. He sold his house overnight. He resigned from every club and association. He donated most of his savings to your scholarship program. Felt dizzy. And there is more, she added. More. I whispered. He left a letter, she said. Public letter. My chest tightened. Where is it? I asked. It is everywhere, she said. People are talking about it. It is posted at the community center. On the town website. On the notice board near the church. I thanked her and hung up slowly. For a long moment I stood still in my kitchen. Nathaniel had left. Not just from my life. From the town. From everything he had built. I grabbed my coat and walked outside. The streets felt strangely quiet. People stood in small groups, whispering to each other. When I reached the community center, I saw a crowd gathered around the notice board. I walked closer slowly. And then I saw the letter. It was typed. Careful. At the top it said, to the people of Maplewood. My hands began to shake as I read. I am writing this not to defend myself, but to confess the truth of my life. For many years, you saw me as a respectable teacher and citizen. But respect without courage is an illusion. I once made a promise to a young woman named Wilma Alvin. I broke that promise. Some people gasped softly behind me. I told myself stories to justify my cowardice. I blamed fear. I blamed my family. But the truth is simple. I did not fight hard enough for love. My eyes burned as I continued reading. Wilma paid the price for my weakness. While I built a comfortable life, she carried the weight of a broken promise. Today she taught me something I should have learned long ago. Truth matters more than reputation. I am leaving Maplewood. A wave of murmurs spread through the crowd. Not because I am running away, but because I no longer deserve the comfort of the life I protected with lies. I have donated my property and savings to the Wilma Alvin Scholarship Program. Not to clean my name, but to give young girls the courage I never had. I do not ask for forgiveness. I only ask you to remember this. Love without courage is not love. Promises without action are lies. Wilma, if you ever read this, Know that meeting you again was the most painful and honest gift of my life. I am walking away as you asked, but I will carry your story with me until my last breath. Nathaniel Crowley. When I finished reading, the world around me felt distant. People were whispering. Some were crying. Some looked shocked. Some looked at me with new eyes. But I did not hear them. All I could see was Nathaniel. Not the teacher. Not the coward. Not the old man full of regret. But the young boy who once stood under a purple sky and promised me a future. I walked away from the crowd slowly. That evening I sat alone on my porch. The sky was turning orange and purple again. Just like the night he made his promise. I wondered where he was now. On a bus. In a train. In a town where no one knew his name. For the first time in 60 years, I felt something I had never expected to feel. Not anger. Not triumph. Loneliness. Because when someone who shaped your life disappears completely, you realize something painful. Sometimes closure feels like loss. The next day Lena came to see me. She looked pale. "Did you know my uncle would do this?" she asked softly. "No," I said honestly. She sat beside me on the porch. "He left without saying goodbye to anyone," she said. I looked at the road in front of my house. "Sometimes people leave not because they hate a place," I said, "but because they finally understand what they have done there." Lena looked down. "Do you hate him?" she asked quietly. I thought about her question for a long time. Then I answered. "No," I said. She looked surprised. "I do not hate him," I repeated. "I outgrew him." That night I could not sleep. I kept thinking about Nathaniel's letter. About his courage coming too late. About his disappearance. And then I realized something that frightened me. Nathaniel did not just leave Maplewood. He left with the belief that he had finally paid his debt. But he did not know one thing. I had not told him the final truth yet. A truth that could change everything he believed about our past. And when I discovered it, I understood that the real ending of our story was not written in his letter. It was written in a secret I had kept for decades. A secret that would change how he saw me forever. In the final chapter, I will reveal the truth I never told Nathaniel Crowley. And when the world hears it, they will understand that Wilma Alvin did not just survive a broken promise. She transformed it into something far greater than revenge. Because sometimes the most powerful victory is not exposing someone else's weakness. It is revealing your own hidden strength. My name is Wilma Alvin. I am 78 years old. And for 60 years I carried a secret that no one ever knew. Not my parents. Not my friends. Not Nathaniel Crowley. Not even myself, at least not in the way I understand it today. After Nathaniel left Maplewood, the town slowly returned to its quiet rhythm. People stopped whispering. New stories replaced old scandals. But inside me something was still unfinished. One evening, as I sat alone in my living room, I opened my old journal. It was a small brown notebook I had kept since I was 18. Inside it were dreams, fears, and words I had never dared to say out loud. I turned the pages slowly. Then I reached an entry dated 60 years ago. The night after Nathaniel made his promise to me. My hands trembled as I read my own handwriting. I am afraid I had written, because I feel something inside me that I have never felt before. If he leaves, I do not know how I will survive. I closed the journal for a moment. For years, I believed Nathaniel had broken my future. But as I looked back on my life, I saw something different. He did not destroy me. He forced me to become someone stronger than I ever planned to be. But that was not the secret. The secret was this. When Nathaniel told me he wanted to run away with me, I was the one who said no. I stared at the words in my journal again. I remembered the moment clearly now. It happened a few days before he disappeared from my life. He met me near the old oak tree behind the school. "Wilma," he said urgently, "we cannot stay here anymore. My family will never accept us. Let us leave this town together." I had looked at him with fear in my eyes. Leave. I had whispered. Leave everything. Yes, he said. We will find work somewhere else. We will build a life from nothing. But I was 18. Or afraid. I thought of my parents. A farm. A town. I shook my head. Cannot, I had said. His face had fallen. If we do not leave now, we may lose each other forever, he had said. I did not understand the weight of his words then. I thought he would wait. I thought love was patient. I did not know that fear could be stronger than love. After that day, he began to pull away. Soon after, the lies from his family finished what my fear had started. For decades, I blamed Nathaniel for everything. But the truth was more painful. We had both been afraid. We had both chosen safety over courage. And we had both paid the price. That was the truth I never told him. That I was not only a victim. I was also a participant in our loss. When I realized this, I felt something unexpected. Not shame. Peace. 'Cause for the first time I saw my life clearly. I was not a broken woman waiting for a man who betrayed her. I was a young girl who made a difficult choice. And an old woman who learned to forgive herself. A few weeks later, I stood in front of the scholarship building we had created. Young girls laughed in the hallway. They carried books, dreams, and hope in their hands. Lena walked toward me with a bright smile. Mrs. Alvin, she said, I got accepted into college. I smiled back at her. I knew you would, I said. She hesitated for a moment, then asked, do you ever regret what happened between you and my uncle? I looked at the sky above us. The clouds moved slowly, quietly. Regret is a heavy word, I said softly. Then I added something that surprised even myself. If everything had been different, I might never have become who I am today. Lena nodded thoughtfully. That evening I sat on my porch again. The wind touched my face gently. For the first time in 60 years, I did not feel like a woman waiting for a promise. I felt like a woman who had finally arrived. Somewhere far away, Nathaniel Crowley was living a quiet life under a different sky. He would never know the full truth I carried in my heart. But maybe he did not need to. Because the real victory was not in making him regret his choices forever. The real victory was this. I stopped letting his promise define my life. And in doing so, I became free. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs hope. Like this video if you believe that courage can change destiny. Subscribe to this channel for more emotional and powerful stories like Wilma's. And tell me in the comments which part of the country you are watching from. Because sometimes, the strongest revenge is not hurting the person who hurt you. It is becoming someone they can never reach again.